I'm Veronica Manlow from the Business Management Department at Brooklyn College, and I'm here with Gina Ferranti. Her brand is Gigi Ferranti, and we're going to talk about her business and about the jewelry business. So Gina, I wanted to ask you a question about how this vast sector, the jewelry sector, is structured and where you fit in.
So you mean where I fit in with all the other designers?
Right. I mean, if we think about, and I guess you could just talk about the luxury sector, but how is it structured? I mean, it's a very large, we know, like many people may know about companies like Tiffany and Van Cleef and Arpels. Could you just kind of give us a sense of how vast it is and how many different players there are? And then there are certainly small jewelry stores, there are jewelers, so there are all different types of roles, and maybe just give us an overview of how it is structured.
Absolutely. So you have your big box brands, you have your Zales and stores like that. Then you have your more private, organizations like Tiffany's and Van Cleef and Arpels. And then you have your regular jewelry stores that are independently owned. Some jewelry stores could have 10 doors, which means they have 10 stores, and some can have maybe one mom and pop. I am an independent jewelry designer, and I sell directly to the consumer from my website, and I sell to independent jewelry stores. They can have one store or they can have 10 stores. Mm-hmm. I do not sell to Tiffany because Tiffany sells their own product, and they have other designers like Elsa Peretti that have been designing for them for many, many years. And within that structure, there are different levels of what designers like me make. I make fine jewelry, so I use precious metals. I use 14 and 18 karat gold with genuine diamonds and gemstones. Then you'll have, other jewelry designers that will use more of like brass or sterling silver. So that it puts them in a different price point, and it targets a different demographic of a customer. Mm-hmm. Not to say they wouldn't merge, because there are some of my clients that do wear more silver. Tiffany sells silver and fine jewelry. It's just about, what aesthetic you like. So they do merge at one point. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much how vast this industry is. And I didn't realize how vast it was until I finally went in and started joining all the trade organizations. And so, yeah, it is very vast.
And you worked at
your question.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And you worked at David Yurman before. So how does it compare working at a larger brand and being an independent jewelry designer?
David Yurman, I worked in their corporate office, and I was grading the gemstones that were being put into the jewelry. It was a huge company, many, many employees. So you kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. So that's kind of where it's different. There's many levels of management and, workers. And so there's many levels in a company like that. You can move up the ladder, but it's very hard. Most of the time people have to leave and someone else's slot is filled in. For somebody like me, I wear all the hats. So I'm an independent jewelry designer, and I do my marketing, my selling. I manage my website. Not to say I don't use outside people like product photographers. I use a platform. I use BigCommerce to launch, my website. So I do have other people that I connect with, but I don't have anybody else that's on my particular payroll.
So you had a very different life in the fashion industry before you became a gemologist and a jewelry designer. How did what you learned in fashion inform what you do today in your business?
Being a lover of fashion and dressing, it's not just clothing, it's accessories. And I'm going to go way back to where, my grandparents used to come back from Italy and bring me, a diamond little pair of earrings or a gold bracelet. And those items always, whether it was for my birthday or for Christmas, it has some sort of emotional tie to the jewelry, because it's something that you remember for the rest of your life. And, you know, my grandparents aren't here anymore, but when I pick up that item they gave me 20, 30 years ago, it brings the emotional tie to it. And that also incorporates into fashion as well, because people want to wear things that have meaning. And so when I design a collection, let's say, I envision what the woman is wearing and how I'm going to wardrobe the jewelry on the person. And a lot of these items do have, you know, further meaning to them. They're not just a piece of gold and diamonds or stones.
How did you decide on a business model? I know in the past you had your own boutique, so you could have decided to have that kind of a model, but instead you decided to sell at other jewelry stores and through trade shows. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Having been a retailer for many years, I was kind of burnt out a little bit. And although I'm a people person and I enjoyed it and I made so many connections, I had, you know, over 2,000 names in my database of women that would come in, you know, I need something for, you know, Christmas party or whatever. But I think after a while, I wanted to try something different and I wanted to learn a different approach. And that was when social media was, you know, starting to get on fire. And I said, you know what, I am going to launch my website first, just so people can see and can find me and can see what I do. But then from there, from selling direct, I says, I'm going to try the wholesale outlet as well and see where that can get me. So for me, it was kind of like a stepping stone. I knew I didn't want to have my own store because I did that. But I still wanted to connect with whether it's the retailer or the consumer in the retail store.
Right.
And that was the reason why I kind of went that direction.
Mm-hmm. And can you describe your client? I know you've told me in the past that it's a woman of about 35 to maybe 65. Can you tell us a little bit more about your client?
Absolutely. So that demographic is totally correct. It's women that love to travel. They don't necessarily have to ask their husbands to buy a piece of jewelry. You know, they're career women. They can buy it for themselves. I have many different price points. So there's a lot to choose from. But women that love to dress, they love to travel, they like the finer things in life, and they have this little bit more of a structured approach to jewelry, because my jewelry is not flowery. It's not boho. It's more timeless, contemporary, and structured. So that's pretty much my demographic.
And is your clientele more local? Is she a New Yorker? Is she international? Who might she be?
Okay, so my clientele is pretty much it's not international yet, although I just started selling and opening up my website to international clients, but they're really from all over the U.S. I do have a couple of clients in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all over Pennsylvania, Miami. There's really not one really area. And I guess it's who finds me too. It's how I market to those demographics in those areas, because people have to find you.
Mm-hmm. And does each woman have her own style in jewelry that she needs to discover? I mean, are there things that work for certain women but just wouldn't work for others? And what would you advise women in terms of
Yes,
discovering who they are in relation to the jewelry that they should be wearing?
absolutely. There's the woman who likes very petite jewelry that kind of just stays in place and doesn't move. Maybe they, you know, work more with their hands, or so they, you know, they don't want things, you know, hanging down too much on them. And then there's the other woman who likes when things, you know, I have dangle earrings, likes movement when they put it on. Maybe they sit at a desk and, you know, they're less apt to, you know, get something hooked on something. But I think when I design jewelry, and what most of the women who buy my jewelry, like is that it's comfortable and it fits well. I always, when I have a new piece, I always try it on, especially bracelets, because bracelets could be cumbersome because they move. So I always make sure that it is comfortable on and it can't, get hooked on something or break or something like that. The stacking rings, you can see they have an edge to them, but people are like, well, they look like they're very pointy and it wouldn't be comfortable on. And then I take my stack off and I let them try it on, and it's really very comfortable. You don't feel the edge.
Mm-hmm. Right. Is there something you'd like to teach women about jewelry?
Yes. I think that women need to be a little bit more open. Some women are still only wearing white gold. Today's fashion is it works more with yellow gold and what's trending, kind of that, 70s inspiration. And it's okay to mix. If you're married and you have a white gold engagement set, it's okay to wear a yellow gold necklace, or even to mix 3 colors.
Mm-hmm.
As long as when you put it on, it all looks cohesive with what you're wearing. Definitely experiment. That's what I would definitely tell women to do.
And what advice would you have for men who are looking to make a purchase for a special woman in their life? We often hear that there are very big mistakes that they could make. What advice would you give to men?
I think men, before they're making a purchase of jewelry, first of all, should have a little wish list, without asking, just kind of like open up a conversation so they have an idea of, which way to go. There's so much in the market today. Do they want a ring? Do they want a necklace? Do they want a beautiful pair, of stud earrings? So get the item first, and then just work with, whether it's me or a jewelry store if they're going in, and try to, I think pictures are 1,000 words. So if I see an image of somebody's wife or girlfriend, I can get an idea right away what from my collection would work with them, just on how they dress, and what they're already wearing in the pictures. So, and don't forget, you always have to make sure that if the woman doesn't like it, there has to be like an exchange policy.
Right. And as an independent jewelry designer, you can do whatever you want. So how do you balance that with what you think maybe your client would like, and with various business concerns and issues?
Well, that's a very good question. I like many things. I like many different, fashion. There's trends that come and go. So I try to stay as on trend, but not super trendy. And I like my jewelry to be kind of timeless and able to be worn with many different looks, and, and have longevity. Because I use good quality, diamonds and stuff, I feel like the jewelry could definitely be handed down to someone's daughter or their son for their, future wife. So I think that it's important to stay in your zone and don't go too far outside of what you as a designer are about. It's something that is expensive to make, and you kind of have to keep your line cohesive so it makes sense. If someone's looking at my collection, I don't think I'm going to bring something in that has leaves on it or is very floral, because that's not who I am as a designer. I'm going to stick to my, geometry, and clean lines and symmetry. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes more sense.
Right. And you do have private clients, those who come to you for a one-of-a-kind piece. Can you tell us how that process works, how you work with an individual client?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just had somebody contact me last week. So most people that come have something they want to redesign. So this young lady has a pair of her grandmother's beautiful diamond earrings, and there's some nice size stones in there. But she wants to keep the stones to, as a part of her grandmother, but she wants to make them more contemporary so she can actually wear them, because the earrings as they are kind of dated and it's not her look, which kind of makes sense. So I will sit down with a pad and I will write down and ask her questions as far as everything she likes. And I will take all of those ideas into consideration, and I would start sketching. And I usually make at least 3 different sketches that are a variation of each. See which one she likes best, and then tweak it. If she doesn't like something on it, tweak it a little bit. But once we decide on, okay, I think this is it, then I take the sketch to a CAD designer, which is a computer automated designer, and they put it actually on the computer where it has more of a millimeter size, because when you're sketching something, it's usually not 100% to scale, so that the person can see the actual size. From the computer automated sketch, it gets printed into a wax, and I might even have a wax. So this is what a wax looks like. It's usually green or color. This was an engagement ring I did for someone. And they're able to try it on to just see if they like it on their finger. We can even pop the stone in there to show them. Once they approve this, then this is taken and it's put on a tree, and the gold is poured on top, and then this melts and it becomes the actual casting, whether it's 14, 18 platinum, it actually turns into the ring. And that's basically the whole process. And of course, it has to be cleaned, polished, and set.
Great. Can you speak a little bit about your creative process and where your inspirations come from? Maybe you might want to talk about the Portofino collection that you're working on now, or another collection.
My Portofino collection is based on Portofino, Italy. And the reason why I chose this area and a destination is because not only do I want to bring the candy-colored buildings and the whole aesthetic, but I want to evoke the feeling of actually being in Portofino. And the vacationer or the person could feel when they are wearing a piece of the Portofino that it's evoking the feeling of that luxury of this fabulous place in Italy, which I have not been to, but it is on my bucket list.
Places. Right.
So, in addition to that, I actually picture the items being worn and what the customer is wearing in Portofino. So it's a whole experience more than even just picking out a piece of jewelry.
And how involved are you with the jewelers who fabricate the designs that you make?
Very involved. And that's one of the things why I've really toyed with possibly, making some of my pieces overseas. It could bring the cost level down, but I like to have that one-on-one hands-on. So when I pick up a new piece, of a collection or just of something, I make sure that it's polished properly. I make sure that the stones are set, and it's an instant gratification, because if it's not, I just give it right back and they fix it. Whereas if it's something that's done overseas, then it's going to take a very long time to have that process done. So it's a little bit more hands-on, and the people that I do work with become part of your family. I like to have a nice rapport, a nice relationship. I like to use people that have that are trustworthy and that have integrity. The biggest part of this business when I went to GIA Institute, and what they told me is, and just me as a person, is the integrity is very important. If I can't do something, or if I can't source a stone, I will not say, well, this stone is blue topaz when it's, a different stone. So the integrity is very important, and I try to find people that have the same integrity as myself.
And so someone buying from you as a gemologist and with your commitments, how would the product that they get from you differ from something they might get at one of the more commercial brands?
So there's different qualities. It's kind of, you get what you pay for. Somebody wants to buy a Mercedes, they're going to get, everything revved up in that Mercedes than if they bought, maybe a Toyota. So it's the same thing when it comes to gems and finishing work and stuff like that. So let's say we'll use Macy's as an example. Macy's has to market to a price point client. So you can get maybe a tennis bracelet that's $500 and it has, nice big stones in it, but the quality of the diamonds are not the quality that if the tennis bracelet was, $5,000 or $10,000. And, as a gemologist, I'm able to pick those stones and source those stones and explain to the client what the difference is. When you have two of those pieces in person and you're comparing it, your eye does all the work. Okay, so you can actually see that the better quality stones are more brilliant. They have more fire. Then the commercial stones are a little cloudy and not as sparkly. So it's kind of like you get what you pay for.
And how often do you design new collections? How do you make those decisions?
When I first started, I did go very quickly. I think my first year I designed 3 to 4 collections, and that's a little too quick. So now I'm slowing down because I do have a lot already, and I like to hone in more on each item of each collection. So usually right now I'm designing 1 collection per year.
And how concerned are you about sustainability and the sourcing of stones? You said a little bit about sourcing in this interview, but
actually, very concerned, and I think that it's something that has been in the spotlight for the past several years. And although I don't, go to the mines and buy the stones directly, I am a member of different trade organizations, and all of the dealers that I buy my stones from have checks and balances and are members and get their stones through reputable sources. And, conflict-free, certain areas, the United States will close down if there's civil unrest due to the sale of these stones. So, you have to, also read and see what's going on. And that's what these trade organizations, kind of like Jewelers of America or American Gem Trade Association, and they'll send out memos if there's something that's banned, a certain origin that's banned, and so you have to keep up with all of this. But I do use reputable sources, and before I find a new source, I ask around and I make sure that everything is on the up and up.
So analysts and others have vastly different views about how much of an impact COVID-19 is going to continue to have on the luxury market and on purchasing. Do you feel there's been a change of consciousness in customers, or do you see that there are certain fundamental conditions that won't change when it comes to jewelry purchases in particular?
When COVID first hit, I think that everything slowed down. And then around, I'm going to say end of March, April, because people couldn't travel, internet sales started growing. And I know, a lot of health exercise equipment, people were buying, bicycles for their home and stuff like that. And the jewelry market did show a little bit of a spike up because they weren't spending their money on traveling. Going forward, I think there's a little bit it slowed down a little bit now. Kids are going back to school. We don't know what's going to happen with that. I know the restaurants are starting to open inside, which means people are going to start dressing again. So I think it's going to start trickling up again. And I think because people are still, afraid to travel, I think the holiday season is going to be pretty positive. And that's the outlook that I have.
Right. Are there any?
If they can get it online.
If they can get right.
Yeah.
Are there any changes that you see in the future for the luxury jewelry sector?
I think there have been, and unfortunately, I think a lot of the brick and mortar stores have closed that were struggling maybe before COVID. A lot of mom and pop shops that haven't really continued with social media and more of what's going on with the times, like having a website. I think they fell to the website, to the wayside, and unfortunately had to close their business. But I think that if you're a jewelry store and you're not online, I think during COVID, I think most stores that were continuing did open up a website and open up their social media and started really, working with that and learning about it more. And I think that is the sign of the times. But I also do think that Zoom and other avenues, if I can't, get to a store in another state, I will absolutely, like I said, send the merchandise and have a Zoom and we can talk about it, or just show it, through the Zoom, and hopefully, have the stores purchase it. So I definitely think that's the future.
And do you feel you've had to adapt and find new ways to relate to consumers and to people that you deal with in different sectors using technology?
Yes. I think that, whether it's Zoom or whether it's doing lives, and, a lot of people feel uncomfortable getting in front of the, camera. And me as a designer, I was a business person first. Because I had a store, so I was always talking and in front of people. A lot of designers or bench jewelers are not used to being in front of people and talking about their jewelry and selling themselves and being in front of a camera. So it's challenging. It's not something, most of the time I'm walking around with my hair in a ponytail and, very casual, but I think that you kind of have to force yourself to get, whether it's doing an Instagram live or a Zoom, you kind of just have to delve into it and just do it, because that's the direction.
Mm-hmm. And are there any things that we might not have talked about that you'd like to discuss?
I'd like to reiterate to the students, if they have any questions, they can email me. If they are planning to get into a luxury, whether it's jewelry or, luxury fashion, to, learn as much as you can. And when I first launched my website, I was really afraid, what's going to happen. But you kind of just have to let the fear go to the wayside, jump in and make your mistakes and fix them. If you don't do that, then you never get anywhere.
Well, thank you so much. It's really been quite an interesting conversation.
Thank you, Veronica, and I look forward to speaking to the students in the future.
Yes, and I'll share all your information with them. Thanks.
Thank you.